I'm lucky enough to have a job where the stuff that I was most obsessed with when I was 10 years old is still a lot of the stuff that I'm most obsessed with now. You know what I mean? Like a lot of that is still driving the kinds of stories that I'm telling.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and today I'm going to talk about Marvel Comics' announcement of 2 new Star Wars comics in 2020. Marvel are rebooting their Star Wars lineup following the Rise of Skywalker film. Marvel are launching their 3rd ongoing series starring the iconic villain Darth Vader and relaunching Doctor Aphra with a new writer. Should Star Wars fans be excited for these new changes? What can readers expect from these new titles? My good friend Dylan from the Real Comic Book Gamer joins me to break it all down. First, I'm going to read Patrick Kavanaugh's comicbook.com article covering the announcement. And then I'm going to give my thoughts on the 2 latest Star Wars comic books. Then I'll talk with YouTube critic, Star Wars expert, and Twitch superstar Dylan from the Real Comic Book Gamer about the latest Star Wars comic news. Before we get into the details of today's video, just a quick reminder, if you enjoy the content of Thinking Critical, please subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications. We drop new content daily and are your go-to source for quality reviews, open discussion, and in-depth analysis. Also, there's a lot of costs associated with the channel. If you would like to help support Thinking Critical YouTube and keep the lights on, a link to our Ko-fi page is in the video description. Thinking Critical also has a Discord server now. It's full of comic, movie, gaming talk, and more. Plus, most of the comics aficionados are there. The Discord server invite is also in the video description. Now, let's get into today's comic industry news. Comicbook.com reports, while some Star Wars fans are disappointed that a number of comic book series will come to an end in December, not all hope is lost, as Marvel has announced details about the return of both Doctor Aphra and Darth Vader series. As confirmed by Bleeding Cool at the London MCM Comic Con, Star Wars Darth Vader will arrive in February from writer Greg Pak. Star Wars Doctor Aphra will return in April 2020 and will be written by Alyssa Wong and illustrated by Marika Cresta. Darth Vader currently appears in Star Wars Target Vader, a miniseries coming to an end in December, while Doctor Aphra appears in her own series, also ending in December. Those aren't the only books concluding, as the proper Star Wars series will also end. After being extremely excited by the Charles Soule Star Wars announcement, this announcement doesn't really hit me in the feel spots. Greg Pak has unequivocally written one of the best comic stories of the past 25 years, Planet Hulk, but he hasn't done anything exciting in a long time. His first few issues of Firefly are really good, but it just kind of falls apart. His Ronin Island series is okay, but nothing really to get excited about in my opinion. I've read a couple of his Star Wars comics and remain unimpressed. Kieran Gillen's Darth Vader and Charles Soule's Vader series are the best Star Wars comics Marvel has produced since Disney bought Lucasfilm. Dark Visions and Target Vader both represented huge drops in writing quality. I see more of the same from Greg Pak's Darth Vader series, but I'll most certainly check it out in hopes Pak rediscovers the old magic once again. I still don't get why Alyssa Wong is at Marvel. She called EIC C.B. Cebulski a racist for writing manga under a pseudonym, a common practice in literature for years, so he hired her to write Marvel comics despite zero experience? I personally would jump on board a new Doctor Aphra series featuring a good comic book writer or Star Wars writer. Alyssa Wong is neither. I'll be passing on this comic. Now let's hear what YouTube critic, Star Wars expert, and Twitch superstar Dylan from the Real Comic Book Gamer thinks about the 2 latest Star... Alright, we have Dylan from the Real Comic Book Gamer today. He is a Star Wars expert, Twitch superstar, and comic industry critic. What's going on, buddy?
Not much, man. It's going pretty good. Let's got some good Star Wars-ness to talk about today.
Yeah, there's a couple of announcements regarding the upcoming Star Wars. We know they're rebooting the entire lineup in December. The Vader series has consistently been the best Star Wars comic Marvel has produced, although the recent Dark Visions and Target Vader haven't met the previous standard for the character. What are your expectations for Greg Pak with the character?
Well, the other Vader comic series have been great. I don't expect much from Pak. He's done some good stuff with Action Comics and Hulk in the past, but he hasn't really written anything noteworthy lately. He's kind of become subpar, and you see Greg Pak put on a book, and it doesn't really excite you. But who knows? Maybe he could do good because, like I said, that's the best thing from Disney Star Wars so far has been these Vader comic series. So maybe this will bring him out of his shell, and we'll get like old good Greg Pak. Who knows? But I don't expect a whole lot.
All right, so as a longtime Star Wars fan, what Vader era or events would you like to see Pak explore this go around?
I think it would be cool to see post-Empire Vader, this Vader that had an interaction with his son, cut his hand off and sent him running. I think it'd be cool to see the emotional conflict sort of start in him at that stage that leads to in the end of Return of the Jedi when he ends up throwing Palpatine. I think it would be cool to see that start brewing in him because he did just cut his son's hand off. And like, I feel like even though Vader is a complete monster, there would be some, like a tiny bit of him that would be conflicted there with what he just did. And I think that would be cool to explore. I would really like to see some of that explored. And I think that could be interesting and do some really cool stories with that.
So yeah, Charles Soule's Star Wars is going to be exploring the same time frame. So you would like to see Star Wars and the Darth Vader comics both explore the same time frame and maybe overlap a little bit?
I think that could be. I think that could work. They did that with a little bit with like Target Vader with the Star Wars books, and they had like all those back in the day. That was a really cool storyline too. With or no, not it was Vader Down. I think it was what it was called. Down. Yeah, that's what it was. Amazing. Yeah, that was really cool, and that like brought all of them together. That was when you got the whole all I smell are fear and dead men. That was so sick. But I think they could do something like that, like they did before, where they took all the Star Wars books and put them together and made a cool storyline. Yeah, I think they could do some good stuff with that.
Oh yeah, I agree. That you got me a little bit pumped up for that. I'm kind of hoping they stick this Darth Vader series right there as well. Maybe get a little crossover action with that main title.
Yeah, you could definitely create a really epic story.
Oh yeah, because Vader Down's the best Star Wars story Marvel's created.
Agreed.
All right, so are there any characters from the movies or comics that you would actually like to see come back into Greg Pak's Vader series that you haven't seen in a while?
So I would love to see some more interactions between Boba Fett and Vader. I think that would be great. We've had some interactions with them in the Star Wars series from Jason Aaron a little bit when he hired Boba to go after Luke and like find out if he's actually his son. But I want to see more of that because in Empire we sort of see a mutual respect between the two because we see Boba talk back to Vader and live, which no one gets to do that, which kind of implies some kind of mutual respect between the two. And I'd like to see a little bit more of that. I think that'd be cool to see Vader and Boba interacting more because you do see that they both respect what the other does and what they're both capable of. And in old Star Wars canon, we had some cool interactions between them. And I don't think Boba's been getting enough love as much as he should. For some reason, it seems like Disney really does not like Boba Fett. And Mandalorian's probably going to replace him as like that cool character. So I'd like to see some more of that. I think that'd be, I think he doesn't get enough love right now from Disney Star Wars, and him interacting with Vader could be really cool.
Yeah, Boba Fett's one of those iconic characters that looks really cool. And, he got introduced, I believe, in the Thanksgiving or the
Christmas special,
the Christmas special, but he got fleshed out so much more in the EU, and he doesn't really get it in the current Disney canon. Why do you think that they aren't giving Boba Fett the love that he deserves?
They have something against him. I think, it seems for they have a lot of animosity towards original trilogy characters for the most part, but you can't turn away Luke, Han, and Leia. Those are guys that, as much as they did it in the movies, they can't do it in the comics because that's what sells and that's what people want. But with Boba, they can do that. As much as people want it, they can try to suppress him and replace him. Like Heather Antos has a huge thing against him. Like every chance, even though she's not with Marvel now, she used to edit some Star Wars books. Every chance she gets, she like craps on Boba and talks about how she hates Boba and stuff. And I just think there's something there with maybe Boba reflects toxic masculinity. Who knows? Because he is just like this cool, badass looking masculine character. So that could be part of it. But I think it's just, this is an original trilogy character that's awesome and the fans love him. We don't like that. We want a new character that they'll love, someone that we created, not a Lucas creation. And I think that's part of it.
Star Wars Extended Universe had a ton of memorable characters like Dash Render, Mara Jade, and Thrawn. Outside the animated Rebels series, none of the new characters introduced in Disney in film, comic, or books, they just haven't really made an impact yet with consumers. What do you think is missing from these new characters they're trying to introduce?
I don't think they know what fans want. A lot of them are rehashes. Like Rey is like, hey, what if Luke was just perfect from the get-go and no one really cares about that? And Finn's who I have a real problem with because Finn is very interesting when you look at his backstory. He's a guy who was raised to be a heartless stormtrooper since he was a little kid, and then he breaks free of all that and joins the rebellion or resistance. That's like a really cool backstory on paper. but then they ruin it because his turn is terrible. Like he talks about how he doesn't want to kill people anymore and he hates it. And then as soon as he turns, he's killing all his brothers in the Empire. And then when he joins the Resistance, he's the new trilogy's Jar Jar. He's a big klutz and he's there just for laughs. Like he is so incompetent in every way possible. And it's annoying. I think Finn could be like the most interesting character of the new trilogy when you look at his backstory, but they don't use that. It's like, oh, here's this guy that was raised to be a heartless stormtrooper, but now he's Jar Jar. And it's like, why? I don't think they know what fans want. I think they're just trying to create something that they think what people want. I think they're trying to maybe go off their success with Marvel, how they have a lot of goofy characters there, and they're like maybe try to do that with Finn. And of course, there's a lot of rehashed characters that are like, here's a mirror to what you had in the original trilogy. You like that character in the original trilogy, so you like him here, right? But they don't have half as interesting of like writing or like their backstory. So I think it's just Disney not knowing what fans want.
You know, I couldn't agree with you more about Finn. Like, he should be the standout. He should be the Han Solo of the new series.
Yep.
There's so much to explore with him because we'd never met a stormtrooper, really.
Exactly.
You know, and one that decided, had a conscience, left the Empire and joined the Resistance, and they do nothing with it. They play him for gags. He's stop holding my hand, and then he's flopping around with tubes hanging out of him. He's getting such a waste.
He's getting tased at the beginning of Last Jedi by Rose, who's just like a mechanic when he's trying to escape. And it's like, and they also undid all his character development from The Force Awakens, where his whole thing was, oh, I don't want to fight, I want to flee. And then he finally decides to fight. In the beginning of Last Jedi, he's like, I'm going to flee again. It's just poor Finn.
What a waste of a great character.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about a not so great character. Since Doctor Aphra was introduced by writer Kieran Gillen, Marvel has tried to make a big deal out of her. Like her solo title had strong buzz initially and had good sales, but kind of everything fell off. Why do you think that Doctor Aphra hasn't hit with people and maintained a big presence in the comic books?
Well, Doctor Aphra was cool when she was first introduced. I liked her because when you have a Darth Vader series, it's hard to make it around a character that doesn't talk very much because Vader's not chatty Cathy, and you also don't necessarily want to be in Vader's mind 24/7 and see what he's thinking. I think that takes away from some of the mystique of the character. And so they had to give you a different character to latch on to that could like progress things forward and talk more. So they gave you Doctor Aphra. I thought it worked well. It's sort of like Master Chief with Cortana. Master Chief doesn't talk very much. They give you Cortana. She explains things. It makes sense. And so I liked her in that series. But then after that, I think they oversaturated her and they like overestimate how much people are interested in her. I don't think she's a character that can hold her own series. That I think she works much better as a side character. So they threw her in the main Star Wars book and they gave her own series, and they sort of made her as this sort of like girl power figure in Star Wars, even though you already had Leia. People like to ignore Leia for whatever reason. And I just think she was oversaturated and she's not as interesting as character as people thought. She worked really interesting in the Vader series, which I think she should have died at the end. I think that was stupid how she didn't. I think that series would have been much better if she was like a one-off character that she was in that series and then Vader killed her. No loose ends, done. Would have made more sense, but they kept her around and they thought people would be more interested in her. But yeah, I just think she's an interesting idea that got a little too far and oversaturated now, and fans are just kind of whatever with her. At least that's how I am with her.
Mm-hmm. So, what are your expectations for writer Alyssa Wong on the Doctor Aphra series now that she has taken the helm?
I have no clue what Alyssa Wong has written. I hope she does a good job. I hope it's not we have an Asian woman in Star Wars, so we chose an Asian woman to write her. I hope it's not that. I hope they chose her because she has a good fit for the character and not just identity politics with this. But yeah, I don't really have I don't even know what she's written, Alyssa Wong. I'm hoping it's good. Do we know the period that this is going to be in? Like what generation or whatever?
There wasn't much details, but I can tell you Alyssa Wong, I believe she's written 4 comic books, and they're all the one shots about Asian superheroes from Agents of Atlas, like spinoff.
So she's like the female Jean Lang, or however you pronounce his name, the guy that wrote Chinese Superman. Yeah. I also, the thing with Dr. Aphra more and more is at the end of like the Vader series, he was intending to kill her, and he supposedly doesn't know she's out there. If she's continually out there doing stuff, Vader would hunt her down and kill her. Like, that doesn't make sense to me, how she's able to go on all these grand adventures Vader would not allow this to happen. She should be dead. So this doesn't make sense within the context of the universe as well, with Dr. Aphra continually getting Solo series and doing this, unless maybe this is like a prequel or something and explaining how she came to be. That could be interesting, seeing her backstory. I don't know if they explained it in her Solo series, because I read like 2 issues of that. I don't know if they explained it in their Solo series. Maybe they did. But yeah, I'm not very stoked about this series, though.
I don't think many people are. So, assuming there are going to be more new Star Wars comics in 2020, more new titles, are there 1 or 2 characters from the movies, the EU, or even the new canon that you would actually like to see featured in their own series?
Yes, I would love. I've been saying this since The Force Awakens came out. Kyle Katarn. I would love them to make him canon. He was from the old canon. He helped make the Jedi Academy with Luke after Return of the Jedi. He was like the most non-Jedi Jedi. He was sort of ish like, what if Han became a Jedi? And he's a really cool character. And I thought him and Jan Ors would have worked perfectly as Rey's parents. They would have made sense. And I wish they'd make him canon, give him a series. And they'd obviously have to adjust some things with this new canon, because it wouldn't make sense about how he's around and the Resistance is around, because he would definitely be fighting that. But he has some really interesting stories. He had some books and video games like Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy, which are great games with really, really cool stories. And he's such a badass Jedi that I would love to see him come back into canon. And I hate that they've been ignoring him, but Disney has plucked some characters into canon, like they did with Thrawn. Even though he was kind of ruined in Rebels, I'd hope that they would that they would bring Kyle Katarn in and actually make him interesting, like he was in pre-canon, instead of like destroying him like they did with Thrawn.
Okay, so for any viewers that haven't read really any of the Star Wars comics, this doesn't have to be Disney. This can be any Star Wars comics. What would you recommend Star Wars fans read if they want to read the comic books?
So I'd recommend definitely Kieran Gillen's run on Darth Vader. It's fantastic. It's one of the best Star Wars series ever written, even though it's under Disney Star Wars. It's really, really good. Charles Soule Darth Vader run, which ended not too long ago, also really good. Covers from the end of Return of the Jedi onward. Not Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith onward. So it's right after he becomes Vader. It's really interesting. And I also recommend the Boba Fett Omnibus, which is from the Dark Horse era. So it's all like every single Dark Horse Boba Fett story. And there's even a story in here where he duels Vader, and it's really good. And then I can't remember the name of it, but there's a Darth Maul Dark Horse book that I'm not sure if it's still canon or not, because it might be, since it takes place right at the end of Clone Wars. So if you watched Clone Wars and you saw that at the end where the Emperor went and fought Darth Maul and his brother, then killed his brother, and it was like, I have a special mission for you, Darth Maul, and then it ended and the show didn't come back, and you were like, what happens next? Read that comic. I can't remember what it's called. It's called like Son of Dathomir or something like that. It's really good, and it gives you an explanation for what happened after Clone Wars Season 6.
Well, that sounds good. Clone Wars is coming back, though, right? To finish off the last 2 seasons?
Yeah, it's coming back for Season 7. I'm not sure if we're getting a Season 8. I think it's just 1 season.
Well, it probably will be canon, because it sounds like those were the events that they were planning on putting in the show, correct?
Yeah, it was, and that's when they made it a comic instead.
Mm-hmm. All right, that is cool. I'll probably have to go check that out. Well, thank you very much for joining me today and talking about some Star Wars comics. Appreciate all your insight and knowledge. And is there anything you want to say before we go, or before I let you go?
There are good Star Wars comics out there. As much as Disney has ruined Star Wars with the movies, they've made some really good comics. So I'd suggest, if you're looking for something, like if you're like me and you're a big Star Wars fan that's fed up with what they're doing in the movies, check out the Darth Vader series they've put out so far. Those are actually solid, and they're canon. So
yes, they're both absolutely amazing, especially Vader down.
Yeah, it's so good.
All right, later, brother.
See ya.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.